Welcome to The Real and the Woo for a bonus astrological update with my good friend Lisa Hagenbuch and my
Hello.
astrologer friend.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining me today so I can get this up before we all encounter the Libra full moon on Saturday.
Yes.
And I brought Lisa back because I don't know about you guys, but I have been feeling that eclipse that we just had, both of them.
Mhm.
And so I thought it would be a good time to have you back to discuss all of the energy because with Neptune moving into, you'll tell us where it went, but it hasn't been there for 165 years. And so a lot of us are feeling things for the very first time. We're all feeling things.
Right.
We're open to feeling them for the very first time. So I'm going to let you take it away and offer your professional and intuitive lens on what's happening.
Okay. Well, we've been going through it astrologically for quite some time. And so what I'm going to hope to do is kind of put into like a bigger context what we've been dealing with for a very, very long time. So I think I'm actually going to start with, I think, as to provide context for this,
Yeah,
I'm going to start back with eclipses for a minute before we dive into Neptune. And it is going into the
great.
sign of Aries, right? For the first time in 165 years, we've never experienced it as this personality before, right? So the eclipses, and there are four eclipses a year, 4 to 5 eclipses a year, two in the spring and two in the fall. So starting back in November, mid-November of 2021, we encountered our first eclipse in Taurus. Now the eclipses are tied with the nodes, and it's about an 18-year cycle. So we first started with the eclipses in Taurus in 2021, and we ended this March 29th with our last solar eclipse in Aries. And why this is so important is because the planets, Venus and Mars, have been ruling the eclipse patterns since 2021.
Wow.
And then back in December 6th of 2024, Mars went retrograde, and then it went direct February 24th of this year, handed the baton to Venus, that went retrograde March 2nd of this year, and it's going direct on April 13th, the day of the full moon. We are kind of wrapping up a little bit of not only this eclipse season, but because Venus and Mars are the planets of, Venus being the feminine, the divine feminine, and Mars being masculine or the divine masculine, we have been going through it in the arena of relationships for a very long time. And we're kind of culminating into wrapping up and releasing some outdated relationship patterns, stepping into some new ones, and which is why it's perfect that we are having Neptune leave its sign in Pisces, its natural sign in Pisces, and go into Aries, because we are at the point where we're taking some of our blinders off and we're saying, I'm not going to do things the way that I used to because I now see a better path for myself.
So, to that, I don't know if you've been seeing the news, but Michelle and Barack Obama have been going through the rumor mill about if they're splitting up or whatever. And I love what she had to say. Because she didn't attend Carter's funeral, she didn't attend the inauguration. And so there was rumors going. And really what it came down to is what you just said. Like, she recognized she no longer wanted to play games that didn't fit her needs. And she's
Exactly.
taking her power back. And she's like, if that doesn't align with me, I'm not doing it. And as females, I feel like we're always made to feel like, I know I'm speaking for myself, have a good damn excuse for why we want to say no. And I just talked about this in a workshop I was doing yesterday. We're just allowed to say no, just
Right.
like a baby. A baby says yes or no, and
Right.
we don't question it, right?
Right.
But then we get older and we're like, we put restrictions and conditions on our decision making. And also what you said about reframing relationships, that's not just with other people, that's also within ourselves.
Yes.
Right?
That's actually where I feel like you need to start.
Exactly. That's why we're friends and we agree on that.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, I mean, I think the most important hour I ever spent was with my teacher, astrology teacher, and had broken up and I was looking for another relationship. And she's like, well, whoa, we're going to start with looking at your relationship issues. And I'm like, well, I don't have any issues. Right? We're all like blind to our issues, right? So she proceeded for an hour to tell me. And then I went home and thought she was crazy. And within 24 hours, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I do. And so we're always needing to peel back the onion and the layers. And what's beautiful about Neptune stepping into Aries, I love what you said about the 2-year-old that we don't question, right? So it's stepping into the sign of the 2-year-old, because, Aries is that time of, birth to 2, and it's got a 2.5-year cycle. So we are really, I think, it's a very interesting time because I think we're having to take off, our illusions are being revealed to us, and where maybe we've been codependent and we've just been people pleasing and we haven't really put our needs first. I think there's all of this energy that what I started out with is basically getting us to go, no, actually, the first person that you need to start with is yourself. Because you're not going to be any use to anyone else if you are not living in your authenticity. If you are not expressing what you desire in your relationships, you're not helping the other person. You're certainly not helping yourself. And this is the time to take the opportunity that's being offered to you, because I can guarantee you, if anywhere you stay stuck, the universe is not going to stop nudging you and sometimes clobbering you over the head and sometimes just taking away and go, we offer. It was like that joke about, the guy on the roof and wants to be saved by God and he sends all this stuff, right? It's like, you got to save yourself now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And put yourself first, because that's really the most important relationship you're ever going to have is with you. It's the only one you're going to start with and you're going to end with, right? Is you.
Right. And so we're going to let you go on, but just for everybody out there, when people like us start talking about things like this and we say it all starts with the self and you don't know where to turn, my email's at the bottom of this podcast. You can reach out to Lisa from her lens as well. But it's often helpful to find a trusted teacher. You can call them life coach. I call myself an energetic coach or energetic warrior, whatever. But it's often good to find a trusted girlfriend, someone who can mirror with love and honesty versus criticism and honesty. So learning how to talk to yourself is really important also, and just really getting clear on your own negative self-talk and really practicing on reframing that first before trying to reframe it with others, because if you're not healed in those ways, whatever people are trying to say to you with helpfulness won't really be interpreted in the way that it's intended.
So. Exactly. You're going to react instead of respond, right?
Exactly.
You're triggered, and then that can go haywire. And I so agree with what you're saying, because one of the things I think really that has been very significant with Neptune being in Pisces. Now, it had been in Pisces since 2011. And then it entered in March of this year. It's entered Aries. It's going to dance a little bit back in Pisces, and then it's going to be there full on for the next it's going to go in officially January 27th, 2026 to stay until March of 2039. When I always think of these energies as operating on a spectrum. There's a positive expression and then there's a shadow side. So the positive expression of Pisces is spiritual guidance, interconnectedness, compassion, all of that. But when it's in Pisces, it communicates with us very much symbolically. So numbers, colors, signs, synchronicities. Pay attention to those. If you see, like, I saw, a possum today in the woods, like, look up, what does that mean? Because it's trying to communicate with us, and it's great to get guidance from the internet, from people, but mostly just like, what does that mean for me? You kind of develop your own vocabulary for the sign symbols and colors and numbers. Take it to your gut and then just sit with it. Because when it goes into Aries, Aries can be a little rash. It can be like a little impulsive, like I'm just going to do this. And it's like, well, if before you make huge changes in your life, make sure that you're clear and anchored, aligned with it before you just go change for change sake, right? You want to make sure that you're being very intentional, but you're just not going to be able to do your relationships the way that you used to. It's like we have the three outer planets all changing sign in 2025. They're all changing their signs. So we're just not going to be able to do things the way that we used to and stay true to ourselves.
All right. So do you want to talk about the full moon then, or Venus and why she's important in the full moon, or go back to Neptune and just sprinkle all your love on us?
Okay. So I feel like, we Mars has been very, very active since January 1st. It was not only retrograde, there's something in astrology called out of bounds by declination, which means it just operates a little extra.
Yeah.
And it was going inside and kind of reviewing some things. Then it handed the baton to Venus. Now, Venus is going to go direct at the time of the full moon. So essentially, I think of these energies as being our creative force, because you really need Mars and Venus to create anything, right? You need a sperm and an egg to make a baby. You need to take action and you need to support yourself in order to do a project or launch a website or a business or whatever. So what this is really, I think, wanting us to grapple with internally is, what do we want to co-create with the universe at this time? And because we've been in these incubation periods, I mean, we're also, Mercury was retrograde, and so for a period of time. And so now, beginning April 13th, all the planets are direct through May 4th. So it's kind of like, what were you wrestling with internally, and how do you want to begin to put it into motion or structure in a new way? It's kind of like, I think about this time, it's been a little bit of breaking down so we can build something new or tweak something new. We don't have to burn everything down to the ground, but we just can't kind of do it the way we used to. And we really need to step into what we desire to create. And I say, like, word manifest, but I like co-create, because I like to work with the universal energies. Like the lunar cycle is beautiful. You can work with that every month, right? So I think this full moon is going to be really, in Chicago, it's going to be at 7:22 p.m. on Saturday. Literally the moon is on the ascendant, the most personal part of the chart, and the sun is in the 7th house of relationships. So to me, what I do on full moons is I like to write down on pieces of paper whatever it is that I want to release back to Mother Moon. Put it on the universal to-do list. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I want to release this. This isn't working for me. Even blocks to whatever I want to create. Just get everything. Let's clear the slate so we can start over. So it's a really great time to do like kind of a final release on everything that has been germinating. And I mean, everybody kind of will have to take this, I always say, take the collective energies and plug them into your chart. So, but getting in flow with the lunar energies is just a great way to be in the flow of your life.
So if you're going to write down things on a piece of paper, here I am thinking about, Saturday night is the first night of Passover. And we're going to be gathered around a table with a lot of other people. And if some of us wanted to do a little extra sprinkle of some woo-woo with the Passover stuff, if I were to invite my guests to write down what they want to release, then what do we do? Do we burn it? Do we put it in water? Like, what do you recommend?
So on the full moon, I usually just write it down and then burn it and collect the ashes and then release the ashes back to nature.
Okay.
Under your favorite tree, or you can put it in the new moon. I usually write them down and put it in dissolving paper. and then release the water back to nature. I like to release all of these intentions back to nature. And what's beautiful, I know I do new and full moon ceremonies every month, but we gather everybody's together and it just amplifies it, right? And then it just So you could do that, at your Passover dinner.
I think that'd be cool. All right.
It's a really good time to clean the slate. We've got a few weeks of everybody being direct, everybody full steam ahead. And I'm not one to don't do anything under a retrograde, but the retrogrades we've been redoing, we've been rethinking, we've just been going over things, and it's time to and it can be really uncomfortable because people got used to you being a certain way. And now you're making positive changes for yourself. Those of us especially work on this, every day. And so, some things either have to shift or maybe something has to end so something new can come in. It can be a little uncomfortable.
It can be.
Yeah.
It was just in the same workshop I was offering yesterday. We talked about that too. The minute you change your dance step, the other people don't know how to dance with you anymore. And rather than say, wow, that's really cool, teach me that new step, a lot of people get in fear and they cringe and they're like, no, you have to stop doing that because I don't get it.
Right.
And because of their discomfort, they want you to stop making the change. And I encourage people out there, stay on the path, make your change, and let everybody else catch up with you and learn how to dance along to the new steps that you're creating.
Yeah.
And if they can't keep up, then they're just not your dance partner.
Exactly. And that's what these eclipses, some things end so some things can come in. And at times your vibration levels just don't match. And so, and sometimes it's because it's just not meant to continue in that way or that person. And it's not that it's a failure. It's just the growth happens. And I think my best recommendation to people is just to keep your vibration high, your frequency high, because then you'll know what to do and it will come from your heart. It won't come as much from your mind and your fear. So, if once your vibe is low and it can get low just like that, I always put on my favorite song, or I go for a walk in the woods, or I, call a friend, anybody that's just look at a picture of your favorite person, just raise your vibe, get it up there. And then you're like, okay, breathe into your heart and then go, okay, this is what I have to take for me. And it serves everybody. It's hard to do sometimes, but it serves everybody for sure.
It really does. It really does. Everybody knows I have a blog on my website called The Heart Drop, which is just what you're describing is we get our heads revved up like an EDM concert. And then the beat drops and then we're all in flow. And it's like, if you can just drop your thoughts into your heart, then you're in more flow. And the image that came to me, my throat's been weird. And it's funny because I've been listening to things about ascension symptoms and what's happening also. And it's like a lot of people are having throat stuff, like learning how to use a new voice almost. And so I'm curious to know what comes out after this. But, I thought about the lowest hanging fruit on a tree. Those fruits are the easiest to pick or pick off. And if you raise your vibration and you're sort of, the juicier fruit at the top of the tree, it's really hard to reach you up there unless you have an intention to do so. And by the time you climb up, you love the view and you don't want to pick that fruit. You want to be the fruit, and so I like that image that you shared about raising your vibes and doing what you need to do to find friends to help you do that or help yourself do that. I wanted to ask you about the full moon just for a second too. Venus, I always think of, the goddess of love. And I think this is a pink full moon, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So is there any sort of love connection or love thing, or it's just truly, like you said, we're meant to just fall in love with ourselves first in this full moon?
Yeah, so each of the full moons they're named after, something. And I think because this one's in Libra, it's ruled by Venus, and it is about connecting to that love vibration, your heart vibration, because the full moons are always the moon opposite the sun. You're always in that relationship polarity of balancing, that sun in Aries, what I really want to go and do, and I want to be off to the races, but it's kind of nice to counterbalance it with the Libra energy because that has the emphasis on the other person. So it just really does highlight that, and particularly this year with the fact that Venus is going direct on the night of the, full moon. I do think it is, and also I think about Venus in terms of receiving. Mars is about taking action, and Venus is about receiving.
I love
So
that.
sometimes we do have to, and women have a hard time receiving, right? Support, even especially from themselves, taking that time out to listen to their favorite song and raise their vibe before they have to go in and, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think we're in very interesting times. As a lot of people think we're in timeline shifts and ascension process. And I always think of it as I just want to raise everything. I want to anchor my vibration in something so I don't lose the change I'm making,
Yeah.
so that's where you have to put yourself the self-love, I think, is the most important piece of it, really. And then your cup can overflow to others.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. All right, so it's 7:30ish on Saturday night, and then is there anything we could prepare for or feel the energy of? I know we're probably already in the full moon energy right now, right? Because it's usually days before and
Yeah,
then days after. And is there anything coming up after that you can help people sort of prepare and look out for?
Yeah, I would say, you probably will feel some shifts after this. And in between now, I mean, it's a short period of time when all the planets are going to be going direct. One of the things I like to do on the full moon is set out water to charge. So you could even start doing that now. And make sure you cover it and just leave it out for a few nights. And then you can add that water into the water that you drink, or you can charge your crystals that your jewelry that you wear every day. So you can kind of keep that energy, like the reminder of like, okay, it's time to step into new things, or take some actions. Yeah, things are going to get, compared to everything that's been going on, it might seem, a little bit boring, but then we can really step into, can be, it's like, okay, I'm really needing to integrate, maybe. I think we're going to go into integration process because we are going to be stepping into some new things in our lives. And it's kind of like, we may have even dreams that we may, or just things that we want to co-create, things that we, like what we would really want to step into when, as Neptune moves more fully into Aries. I think it's going to be able to kind of put those things in motion and try to make our dreams come true, and it just makes sure that the changes that you're aligned with the changes you're making that you want to make.
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of sparks of the collective individually, and we're really needing to learn how to sparkle so that, the whole can ascend, collective humanity can ascend.
Right. And Neptune has to do with water, correct?
It is water, yeah.
Right. So water in Aries, so there could be like,
Water and fire.
I'm just going to simplify this, a little too much water, a little too less water, but anything with water. So drink more water. We might some of us might feel a little bloated and have it to release water, take baths, go buy water, seal up your house, prevent it from getting water into it.
Yeah.
Right. Some of those kinds of things. Okay.
And boundaries.
Yeah. And
Boundaries. Both physical, practical boundaries and energetic boundaries, which, Neptune and Pisces is not good at all with boundaries. And that's where we got into a lot of codependent patterns. I'm spiraling from those and saying, I just can't do this anymore because I have to go in this direction. If we can make it work together, great. If we can't, Aries is like, eventually Aries will do what it wants to do and it will go.
And that again, that starts with the self, right? Like if you really take a good look at yourself and say, we've got to get this together because this isn't working anymore for us, you and me.
Right.
Ourselves. And so, if you look at it that way, creating a boundary of overthinking or lack of self-love or whatever it is, a pattern that we want to shift in ourselves, if you think about the other half of you as someone else, it's easier. But you don't want to be around a person like that anyway. So why would you want to live with yourself that way?
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where it does the seed always starts with yourself, because you have to be true to yourself at the end of the day. And when you're in
Right.
conflict with yourself, right? You just
Well, I don't think
body.
everybody does, Lisa. I think they get so used to feeling like crap, or they were raised to believe life is hard, get over it.
Yeah.
And, that makes me sad, but also change, it takes a lot of courage. And it
Mhm.
takes a lot of courage to take a good look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what are we really not feeling in love with here?
Right.
And for my clients, I remind them it's a good clue to really see how you feel in your body, even when you just look at yourself. And if
Mhm.
there's any sort of tension or tightness anywhere, it doesn't have to be in your eyes, it could be in your heart, it could be in your gut. If you feel out of alignment, which is what you're saying, we
Yeah.
need to start paying attention to our body cues, truly. Our
Oh,
body speaks to us, and that's what we want to get curious about, it sounds to me like at this time, so we can really feel where we're out of alignment. And we're
I,
all allowed to feel good.
exactly. Because
Right.
Neptune and Pisces have been very ethereal, right? So now Aries is like physical, right? I'm getting into the physical body with that book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? So your body will tell you what's going on, and then you can look up, there's a lot of good information about, um like you said, I'm clearing my throat a lot, right? So look at the throat chakra, or
Mm-hmm.
my hip is hurting, look at why that could be, and then just see, am I out of, there's always kind of a energetic connection to the physical
Right.
feeling of being out of alignment. So look at that and
Mm-hmm. And
the flip
obviously,
side,
if you're
balance.
feeling bad, go see a doctor.
Yeah.
But you and I always like to say there's layers to that, right?
Yeah.
So take care of yourself medically and take care of yourself energetically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
So the energetic piece is kind of the piece that you can do, with yourself, look at your beliefs, your thoughts. And also, Mars has been this whole retrograde, is it retrograded back into Cancer, which is not really that comfortable there, but that has to do with our family patterns. So looking at ancestral patterns that may not even belong to you because they started 10 generations ago. There's a lot of good modalities to clear that stuff. And then it helps future generations out. So,
Exactly.
mhm.
How are you doing with your ancestral work now? Because
Yeah.
you've delved into that. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I do individual, I actually now call them constellations,
Hmm.
because so a constellation is essentially taking an energetic, like taking a drone up above a situation and seeing the energy of it, and then putting it back in order in the moment. And so it can shift through time. So a lot of these patterns do relate back to our played out in our family patterns. But also, I think we have soul issues that, I like to think of it now as you've got to clear any family patterns that are out of alignment that are affecting you. But you also can take a look at, where has my soul been repeating patterns that I don't want to do anymore? So I've been kind
Hmm.
of become obsessed about the soul piece, because, we're a personality this lifetime, but we've been through lifetimes, and sometimes we repeat the pattern over and over again. And so if you don't clear it up, to me, you're always going to come back to repeat the pattern. So I feel like I see it as kind of like the family is horizontal and the soul is vertical, and you just have to get the sweet spot. I'm going to clear it all. I just want to be done.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, so and then I have a new modality that I've learned where you dialogue with the soul conscious to give strategies to the subconscious in the moment to clear patterns so you don't get triggered or step into landmines in the moment. So I just kind of continue finding new things to do, and it's fun. It's fun.
What's that called that you just described?
Yeah, that's called personal energy training. It's a mix of a man who developed it. Kind of, he was chiropractor, energy worker, hypnotist, and he just kind of combined a bunch of things together. And it's a protocol where I, as the facilitator, just kind of walk you through what's your soul working on and what's it being tripped up by the personality, and just kind of getting that in alignment.
Mm. That's
So
so cool.
yeah, it's
Well, it
really
sounds
cool.
like it's a good time for people to reach out to you for that if they are
Yeah, that'd be
interested in
great.
it.
That'd
I've
be
I've
great.
not heard of the soul that way. Where I've come at my learning is I agree that the soul comes back. We come back to learn the lessons we're meant to learn in this lifetime, and sometimes we are repeating those lessons. And we come through with the same family constellation. I might have been my father might have been my child. That kind of stuff. But we all come in with an agreement to take on these roles for each other so that our souls can evolve.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I hear you, that we're working on the horizontal in that way, but also the vertical is the personal.
Yeah,
So,
because sometimes the soul issues aren't in your family line. So sometimes you
right.
can't clear it just in the family because it didn't start there. Or maybe they've been in your family in other lifetimes or whatever it is. But it was revealed to me that I've been repeating a pattern through lifetimes. And I was like, okay, it sparked me to go, I'm not doing that again. So I
Mm,
went on this quest to clear it. And it's an uncomfortable quest, but
mm.
I think I'm getting there. So
That's
trying to
great.
hopefully translate that to help others.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to discuss before the full moon or anything else about astrology?
I think, I just think also we need to give ourselves a lot of grace and a lot of self love and just let ourselves off the hook because we're really in a very, very charged energy, which can be really fun at
Really?
times,
I don't know what you're talking about.
right? I know. I know. And it's uncomfortable for people who don't want change. If you don't
Yeah.
want change, it's uncomfortable. It's going to happen. We're whole planetary wise, we're moving into the sign of Aquarius, right? That's to me, it's all about being an individual in the collective and what role do you play and what instrument do you play in this whole orchestra. So we are shifting on layers and levels that it's a little unprecedented. Like you said, we haven't been here before, but we're all, hopefully just healing each other back home.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about, in my intention necklace, I have the three words I have: trust, oneness, and inspire.
Yeah.
And, the trust, having faith in
Yeah.
what we cannot believe or understand. In other words, that there is a grand plan and we
Right.
are, like you said, just playing individual instruments in this grand orchestra.
Yeah.
And we all falsely believe someone, human wise, is a conductor. And we
Right.
look for those conductors, we look for the people in charge. And really, we need to take that levels beyond and just trust and have faith that this concert we're creating is really being directed and led by other forces meant to. And we all signed up to be here now.
Mhm.
And so it's hard though. There's a lot of times where I find myself catching myself. I'm not in trust. I'm not in faith. I'm
Oh,
going down a rabbit hole of fear and despair.
yep.
And I think a lot of us are there sometimes.
I'm
And
there
it's
a
not to
lot.
say that we're
Yeah.
putting blinders on when I'm talking about this. It is a lot of us, it's a push and uncomfortable to even lift that vibration just a little higher to say, it's
Exactly.
okay, I'm not in charge. And I keep thinking about what you just said too, like little kids, they wig out the most when they have no structure.
Right.
And because we're all experiencing this energy for the first time in all of our lives times, it's almost like we have no freaking idea what we're supposed to be experiencing or doing. And so it's easy when we're in our weakest places to look for the saviors and to look for the kings and the
Mhm.
leaders or whatever to make the choices for us.
Yep.
But what you are saying so clearly is we are in charge of our own choices.
Right.
And when we lift ourselves up and create that spark of sparkle, that we inspire, the ripples go out and out, that we all sparkle. And we don't have to know where we're going. We can
Right.
just know that we're all in this together and let's make it the best journey and the best concert that we
Yeah.
can make it.
You bring up a really good point that I do want to add. So the planet Saturn is going to be going into Aries on May 26th of this year. That's going to allow a grounding, anchoring, structuring type of
Hmm.
energy. Because I so agree with what you're saying. And that is can be the hardest part is to be in surrender and trust it, divine
Hmm.
trust. And that's where that can take you out of your high vibes so quickly. And then you just have to go, okay, I don't know the grand plan. There's that old proverb of like maybe, the farmer that something good would happen and he'd say maybe, and then something bad would happen, he'd say maybe, it's
Mm.
like change is the only constant, right? So we have to just trust. You know, I think what's really good about a good context to put Neptune, the change in Neptune is, sometimes when Neptune was in Pisces, sometimes we can put on our rose-colored glasses or look for somebody to save us,
Hmm.
right? And now when it's in Aries, it's like, okay, we are the co-creators. We have universal support and we can do what we need to do and take the action steps and step out of fear and step out of our comfort zone sometimes just
Hmm.
to get on. I feel like whether you're conscious of it or not, it's on some level, when you're out of flow, and you just have to always
Right.
put yourself back in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it. I mean, I've been feeling really tired. I've been describing to my friends. It's like I've been through pregnancy. I know what that exhaustion's like. And I've been through being sick and I know what that exhaustion's like. And this wasn't exhausted as much as just, I just prefer not. It's like, I don't know if it's proof rock I read in high school. It's like, it's just, I just like meh, but it wasn't negative meh. It was just like, yeah, I just don't feel like doing that. I'm just going to sit here for a while.
Yeah.
And people that know me know I'm not a sitter much, but
No.
more and more, I'm really just listening just to the part of me that says, you know what, Larry, just sit down. Sit
Yeah,
down and
just
shut up
be. Right, just be
and
sometimes.
just
That is an
be.
action. Yeah, just
It's an
be.
action, right? Doing nothing is still a choice. And
Yes.
when we allow ourselves to make those choices in those moments of alignment, it's like, and again, it comes up about having to find a reason why or an excuse for.
Mhm.
Initially I was like, why am I so tired? What's wrong? Versus, I'm having a tired moment,
Yeah,
and that's a period. That's a
yeah,
sentence. And I don't have to go dot, dot, dot. So, for those of us who tend to go dot, 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 try to just put a period on it. Take
right.
that pause and be okay with that as a full sentence. No is a full sentence, and
Yes.
so is yes.
Not a comma, right? It's a period. I mean, because
Exactly.
when you're integrating, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
You're
and there's a lot I'm feeling, like you said, that we're meant to be integrating, and
mm,
whether we feel it physically, mentally, energetically, literally, the changes on the planet, the changes in our United States, and
mhm,
so on and so forth affect each of us
totally.
individually, collectively. And it is our responsibility to do the best work we can, right?
Yeah, there's layers to me. So every time you get triggered and then you raise your vibration up and anchor it, you're like, I'm removing a layer. I'm just removing a layer. And then
Yeah.
eventually I'm going to be like, well, that doesn't trigger me anymore. And then I'll work on the next one. We're here to experience, right? So we're just
Hmm.
having different experiences and we're all just trying to do our best, I think, for the most
Yeah.
part.
There's something I was listening to this morning, and I wrote down two quotes, and I want to share this with everybody because it really hit me. It's, instead of trying to be our best, try to be our truest version of ourselves,
Love that.
right? It really shifts that paradigm.
Yes.
And then the other one she said was focus on improving, not proving.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in
So
progress. Yeah.
yeah, I really, those were two really good nuggets from this morning. So anybody that wants to listen to those again, just repeat this.
Yeah.
So, all right, Lisa, I'm going to put every way people can find you in the show notes like I have before, and I will bring you back again because I find your information so helpful and you're so generous with it.
Thank
And
you.
so I
I
really
really, really
appreciate you so
appreciate
much.
you. Yeah, as your
Yeah.
family. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Talk to you later.